Now that users can go through basic authentication flows such as registering, logging in, and logging out, let's use Firebase Authentication to implement some more advanced use cases. So what I want to do first is implement a password reset flow. So ideally, what the user would do if they forget their password is they would click a link down here that says something like forgot password, and that would take them to a form where they can just put in their email and have a password reset email sent to the email that they put in. So starting off, I actually want to start off on the command side. So I want to create a command that will execute the logic against Firebase Authentication to send out the password reset email. So in previous videos, I started on the UI layer, but let's switch it up and start with the command. So we'll actually see the Firebase Authentication logic right off the bat. So we'll call this the send password reset email command. And this will be an async command since we're going to hit Firebase Authentication asynchronously. So we'll inherit from async command base. So let's implement that. And we'll just have to implement this execute async method. So we want to hit Firebase Authentication to request a password reset email gets sent. So we're going to need our Firebase Auth provider. That's part of our Firebase Authentication .NET package that we're using. So let's get that Firebase Auth provider as a field in this class. Let's import firebase.auth, and we'll get this injected through the constructor. So now we can simply send the password reset email using this Firebase Auth provider. There should be a method on here. Let's see. So we want to send password reset email async. Pretty straightforward. And all we need to pass in is the email. So at the moment, we haven't associated this command to any view model. So let's just stub out an email field. So let's just throw a variable in here for now. So just a local variable email, and we'll just say test@gmail.com. And then lastly, we need to await this async method. So let's await that and make this method async. And then also this send password reset email async method could throw an exception. So let's wrap this in a try catch and handle that exception as best as we can. And handling this exception, we're just going to show a message box. So let me just copy one that we have to handle exceptions in another command. So let me grab one from this login command, copy that, and paste that here. And we'll just update the messaging. Got to import message box. Let's do that. And for the error message, we'll say failed to send password reset email. Please try again later. And then we'll keep the caption of error. The only action is to press OK. And this is an error variation for the message box. I suppose we should also show a success message. So let's add a message box here. This will be an information variation on our message box. Our caption will be success. And we can just say successfully sent password reset email. Check your email to finish resetting your password. Also, after we send this password reset email and show this message box, we should also navigate back to the login page. So for that, we're going to use a navigation service. Let's get one passed into this command. So this will be an iNavigation service. We want to navigate back to the login page. So we'll call this the login navigation service and get that through the constructor. So add a parameter for that. And then we'll simply just call navigate on that navigation service when we're finished sending the email and showing the message box. So this is the bulk of the send password reset email logic, really just offloading most of the heavy work to the Firebase Authentication .NET package. So that being said, next up, instead of hard coding the email here, let's get the email from a view model that represents what the user typed into the UI. So let's create a view model, and we'll call this the password reset view model. So let's create that, and let's inherit from view model base. So we get our iNotify property changed implementation for free. And now let's think about what our password reset UI is going to do. So first off, we're going to have to get the user's email for their account, which will send the password reset email to. So let's create a property for the email, which we'll bind to on the UI. But aside from that, that's really all the data that we'll need from the user. So once they put in that email, they'll press a button to submit the form and execute the command to send the password reset email. So let's create another property that represents that command. We'll call this the send password reset email command. And then we'll have another command to navigate back to the login page, just in case the user doesn't want to go through with the password reset form. They can return back to the login page. So we'll call this the navigate login command, and we'll initialize both of these commands in the constructor. So the send password reset email command is going to be the command that we just created. So the send password reset email command, we'll instantiate that. Let's import that from our commands folder. And that requires a Firebase auth provider and some kind of navigation service to redirect to the login page. But it's also going to need this view model instance so that inside of this command, we can grab the email from the view model. So that being said, now that we have our view model, before we finish instantiating this, let's finish up with this command and reference our password reset view model to get the email that we want to send the password reset to. So we're going to have another field for the password reset view model. Let's import that. We'll just call this view model. And in fact, we'll just regenerate the constructor. So let's select all these fields and do a control dot and generate a constructor. And now, instead of using this hard-coded email, we can just grab the email from our view model. So grab that email property, and we'll pass that email to Firebase Authentication. So that being said, we pretty much wrapped up the implementation of the send password reset email command. So let's head back to our view model and finish instantiating this command. So now we pass in this view model instance so that the command can get the email that the user types in. We also need a Firebase auth provider passed in and a login navigation service. So for both of these are going to get passed through the constructor. So let's generate parameters for those, and we can just import these namespaces. So import Firebase auth, and let's also get a parameter for the login navigation service. Just import this namespace. So all good on initializing the send password reset email command. Let's also initialize this navigate login command. So this can just be a new navigate command. So this is part of the MVVM Essentials package. And all this takes is a navigation service, and the command will use that to navigate to whatever page the navigation service represents. So for the navigate login command, we conveniently want to navigate to the login page. So for that, we can just pass in this login navigation service that we're already using for the send password reset email command as well. So with that, our view model should be ready to use. We can send the password reset email, and we can navigate back to the login page if the user wants to. The only issue is that we don't have a UI for this view model yet. So in our views folder, let's add another view. So this will be a user control, and this user control is eventually going to bind to our password reset view model. So we'll call this the password reset view. So let's create that. And I feel like this view is going to be somewhat similar to our login view, except obviously it's going to have just the email field and different labeling to represent that this is a password reset flow. So starting off, I'm just going to copy this entire login view and paste this in here. And we'll walk through this to get it to what we want. So we're still going to have max width 500 and margin 25. Those are the parameters that we've been using for all of our layouts, I believe. I'd probably consider extracting this to a reusable layout style if this were a real application. But moving on, in this grid, we have two rows. The first row has the header. This is going to be different. So this is going to be password reset instead of login. And then we get into this second row, which is a grid that's going to represent the actual password reset form content. So we got a row for our email field, and that binds to an email property, which we have on our view model. So that's all good. Definitely want to leave that. But we don't need this password field because we're trying to do a password reset. Obviously, we don't even have that. And all we need is an email anyways. So next up, we have this submit button that we'll use to execute the command to send the password reset email. So since we removed that password field, this is going to move into grid row 1. And the command we're binding to now is not a submit command because as we see on the view model, we don't have a command called that. Instead, we want to bind to this send password reset email command. So let's bind to that, and we'll even change the content. We should make this a little more specific. We'll say send password reset email. And then finally, we have this transparent button at the very bottom of our form. This will move in the grid row 2 now, since we only have 3 rows. In fact, let's remove this 4th row. We don't need that. This will bind to our navigate login command. So I want this button to take us back to the login page. So for the content, we'll just say return to login. So this password reset form should be good to go now. So at this point, I want to test this as soon as possible. So let's connect this password reset view to the password reset view model. And then let's update our app.xamarin.cs to navigate to the password reset view when our application starts. So starting off, let's connect the view model to the view. So whenever the current view model for the application is a password reset view model, then we want to display the password reset view. So we have this data template here that represents that logic. So now we just need to direct to the password reset view model when our application starts. So in the app.xamarin.cs, before we can even do that, we are going to have to register our password reset view model in dependency injection. So let's move up to our dependency injection setup and implement that. So let me just copy this registration for the register view model, and we'll just paste this down here and change it up to fit the password reset view model. So we're going to register a navigation service for the password reset view model. So let's register a factory function that will create that navigation service for the password reset view model. So this will create the navigation service, and now we have to tell the navigation service how to create this password reset view model. And in fact, our register view model that we copied the registration for takes in the same parameters as the password reset view model. So no changes here. We're passing in the Firebase Auth provider, which our password reset view model needed, as well as a navigation service to the login view model. So that fits perfectly. This is now registered, so we have a navigation service for the password reset view model. So let's use that when the application starts. So we're just going to change this use case where we're not logged in. We want to register, or we want to navigate to the password reset view model. So we'll resolve that navigation service and call navigate when our application starts and we are not logged in. So now when we start the application, just for testing purposes, we should navigate to the password reset view. So let's try this out. So here we go on the password reset form, and we could send the password reset email. But first off, let's test return to login. So I want to go back to the login page because I don't have an account at the moment where I actually own the email of the account. Because right now the test account I'll be using is test@gmail.com. So let's register a new account. And this will be my actual Singleton Sean email. So singletonsean4@gmail.com. My username will be Singleton Sean. And just throw in a random password here. So let's register. There we go. Successful. Let's try logging in. So let's submit that. Successfully logged in. Let's log out. And now let's send a password reset email. So here we go on the password reset form. Let me put in that email for the user I just created. So let's send that. So there we go, successful. So based on that, we saw that we did redirect to the login page. That's good. So let me open my email and go through that password reset flow. All right, so in my email now, I was confused for a second because I actually marked it as spam, so it took me a while to find it. But as we see, we did get this password reset email sent to us, and we get a link in order to reset our password. So let's select this, and it doesn't open. Maybe I have to mark this as not junk in order to open links for some reason. All right, so after marking this email as not junk, I can click the link now. So here we go. That opens up a tab over here where I can put in a new password. So let me just throw something in here and save that. So there we go. My password was reset. So now if I return back to the application, I got redirected back to the login page after going through that password reset form on our UI. So now I can conveniently log in with my new password. So let me put that in and let's try logging in, and it was successful. So that's exciting. We were able to go through really the full flow of registering a new user, logging in, resetting our password, and then logging in again. So now the last step is putting a button on our login form that'll redirect us to the password reset form whenever we have forgotten our password. So now when our application starts, we do want to go to the login view model as we were doing before, not the password reset view model. So now if we run this, now we show, let me log out, but we'll show this login view. So right under here, I want to have a button that says forgot password, and clicking that will take us to the password reset form. So let's move over to the login view and let's start on the UI. So underneath our password box, we're going to have a button, and the content will be forgot password ? And it'll bind to a command that'll navigate us to the password reset form. So we'll call this navigate password reset command. And while we're here, let's actually style this button. So we're going to set the button style. So create a style targeting buttons, and we want to base this off of our default button style. Or actually, let's base it off button transparent, because I want this to be like a link, so I don't want it to have the button background anyways. And the only difference is I want the text color on the button to be bluish like a link. So let's have a setter, and let's set the foreground maybe just blue. That might look decent. In fact, let's run this and see how it looks. We should be able to do some live debugging too. So it looks decent, but of course we need to align this to the left. So let's do that. Should be able to do horizontal alignment left. Will that be enough? Yes, but we have some margin on it. I don't want any margin, but we should be able to set that. So let's set the margin to 0. Although, it's not margin, it's padding based on how that looks. So let's do that. Padding 0. On the topic of margin, I feel like we do need some margin to the top just a little bit. So let's add that. I'm not going to put that on the style because I don't think the margin will be something that we want to reuse if we ever extract this style to a reusable style. But let's just do maybe 2 margin on the top. Might look good. Oh, I think that's decent. Maybe a little bit more. Let's try 5. So 5 margin to the top. I like that better. All right, so pretty satisfied with this forgot password button. But I was thinking I should have also applied this blue foreground to this need an account button and this already have an account button, just to represent that these are clickable, because just looking at them, they kind of just look like plain text. So definitely something that we could come back to improve. I really feel like the entire styling of our application, of course, could use improvement, but for demo purposes, I'm satisfied with where we're at. Now let's get into implementing this button's behavior of navigating us to the password reset form. So in our login view model, we're going to have another command. So this is going to navigate us to the password reset form. So let me grab this command name that we used on our UI. So our forgot password button is going to bind to a navigate password reset command. So let's add one of those to our view model, and we'll initialize that in the constructor. So we're going to initialize this to a new navigate command, and we need some kind of navigation service that'll navigate us to the password reset form. So we'll call this the password reset navigation service. Pass that to our navigate command. So now when we click this button on our login form, then it's going to use our password reset navigation service to navigate us to the password reset form. So now we just need to update this login view model registration. So lastly, we're going to pass in a navigation service for the password reset view model, and we already have this registered as we did before. So let's ensure this navigation works as expected. So if I click forgot password, it should take us to the password reset form, which it does. That's good. And if I click return to login, we go back to the login form. So pretty satisfied with these changes. We have successfully implemented a password reset flow via Firebase Authentication. So if a user forgets their password, they can go through this flow, enter their email, and get a password reset email. So just to summarize, we created this password reset view representing our UI where the user just puts in their email and can execute a command to send the password reset email. So this view binds to our new password reset view model that stores the input that the user puts in and also instantiates these commands to send the password reset email and also navigate back to the login page if the user wants to cancel the password reset. But if the user does want to send the password reset email, then they execute this new send password reset email command, and this simply grabs the email that the user typed into the UI, which is stored on our view model, and uses the Firebase Authentication.net package to send the password reset email. I should also mention that if you want to configure the password reset email, then you can do that through the Firebase console. So if you come over to Authentication, and then in these tabs, select Templates, and then select Password Reset, then you can change all kinds of things with the password reset email, such as the sender info, the subject, and the actual message of the email. But aside from that, hopefully you can apply these concepts to your own application to support password resets through Firebase Authentication. Finally, if you have any questions, criticisms, or concerns, be sure to leave those below in the comments section. If you enjoyed the video or are enjoying the channel, consider becoming a member. Other than that, leave a like or subscribe for more. Thank you.